everybody. Wow, this is so cool. I love this platform. I love the way this is going. I'm delighted to be here. My name's Connie Maldonado, and I am just ecstatic to introduce our next speaker, Michael Kublin. He is an entrepreneur, Fortune 500 IT leader. He created and became president of a company called People Tech, and you may have heard of it. He teaches a lot of leadership stuff, does an awesome job. I know several people who've been through his leadership series, but he is just an awesome guy. This program is for individuals and organizations. He's also passionate about helping others. You know, there's a passion there when you interact with people. So we're delighted to have him. So Michael, why don't you come up on stage with me and we'll get this thing rolling. Hi, Michael. Yeah, you need to unmute. You're muted. Yep.
Thank you so much. And
awesome.
I am so appreciative of all of you attending, and thank you so much for the wonderful introduction. I appreciate that.
So,
and without further ado, welcome everyone. I want to welcome you to what is called the common denominator, and that's the differentiator. And I want to thank you all for attending the session. And number one, what I want you to do is the first thing is to do a big thing and to pat yourself on the back.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because it's important that you all know that the reason the common denominator is a differentiator is because it's all about you. You might think, oh, well, that's a little bit egocentric, but so often as project managers and leaders of PMOs, what we end up doing is taking and working so hard for everyone else that we forget to work on ourselves. And this whole session is being able to work on you and being able to take care of you and how you come across and how you handle conflict and how you handle change. And it's putting its energy into you. And okay, I want to get my share the screen here. Don't know why I'm having a little bit of trouble, so excuse me. This is not good. And I practiced and everything, and it still won't come up. Connie?
Yeah. So
I have the thing minimized.
So you need to
here it is.
The PowerPoint.
I got it in the oh, there it is. There it is. I got it.
And then you do the application. There we go. Okay, you're good.
I'm good. So is everybody seeing my screen now? Good. So without further ado, again, if you've patted yourself on the back already.
Michael, sorry. I don't think, would you share it from application window? Because what we're seeing is like your whole screen. So why don't you try that again, but do application window this time?
Okay.
And the PowerPoint needs to be up and kind of off to the right, you know?
Yeah,
so that,
it is. So let's see.
And then, of course, you're going to select the PowerPoint.
Do you see it now?
So you, I still see your screen. Did you click on?
Yeah, yes, I did.
Click on. All right, so share screen.
Okay, here we go.
Application window.
I did it, and I feel so terrible here.
Wow, so share. Do you see the application window?
I did. It was there. It was there. Okay, application window. All right, here's the application window. It's there.
So click on it and then click share.
I had it there before, but it won't go back into the application window. Okay, here we go. Are you seeing it now?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
You're good.
All right. Well, welcome again. Thank you, everybody, and thank you, Connie, for being patient, and thank you all for being patient. If you've tapped yourself on the back and patted yourself on the back, that was the first thing I wanted you to do, because I need you to congratulate yourself, because you're taking time out of your schedule to work on you. And that's the thing we don't tend to do. We tend to put all our energy, effort, and emotion into working with the customers we serve, and not that that's wrong. The issue is we need to allocate some time to be the best we and the best I that we can be. And the way we do that is to work on how do we come across, how do we handle conflict, how do we live our life, are we doing what we love to do, are we getting out of our work the things that we want to get out of our work. And what we're going to do today is look at what separates the best of the best, what makes the best project managers the best. And you've heard a lot of tips from both Dawn and Tim, and they were fabulous tips that could be implemented immediately. And what I would like you to do is get one tip out of today that you're going to take and implement as well. You're going to get these 5 P's of leading yourself and your project team or other teams. We're going to look at 3 things that 1% do that get the engine flowing, and then 3 ways to overcome once your engine is clogged. What do you do? How do you get it unclogged? And then, like I said, what is one thing you can do today that you can commit to so that you are honing your skills? So here we go. We're going to do an icebreaker. And if you could send in the chat, if you could see this screen, I'd like you to pick and select the words that are most like you and just circle them. Circle all that apply in these 4 columns that are most like you. So take a few minutes and do that. Okay. I thank you. Take another 30 seconds. All right. By now, you should have had a chance to look these words over and pick words that are most like you. If you selected more words in column 1, you're a very dominant, goal-oriented person. You like results. You like to get things done. You like to make sure that you are leading and driving change, and you're a problem solver. We call those the dominants. If you selected the words in group 2, you're an influencer, which means as an influencer, you like to influence people. You like to make sure you're social. You like to make sure that people are involved. You like to make sure that you make things happen through people. And because we're complex as individuals and as human beings, we're both of these. We can tend to be some dominance and some influence, or a lot of influence and some dominance, or no influence or very little and some dominance. But we tend to be blends because we're complex as human beings. If we picked most words in column 3, then we're a high steadiness. We get a lot of things done. We tend to focus on tasks, and we focus on the team members within the task, and we like to get things done, usually one thing very well at a time. We get it done, and we can be given a ton of work because we're very dependable. We're very loyal. We're very get it done oriented, but one thing at a time, and we don't like to rock the boat too much. And in the 4th column, if we picked most of our words in 4, we're really conscientious. We're very critical thinking. We like to think things through, the who, what, when, where, why, very detailed, very analytical. So again, because we're very, very complex as people and as human beings, we don't want to pigeonhole ourselves or anyone. So we're really a blend of all these, but we tend to prefer one over the other. And most of you in your careers have probably taken a DISC assessment. If you haven't, I highly recommend it. But I highly recommend multiple assessments, not just to get the results of are you a D, an I, an S, or a C, but we want to know that because we want to know what our strengths are, but we also want to know the strengths of everybody else that we're dealing with, and we want to know what strengths we might be overusing, because it's the strengths that we overuse that get in our way. So for example, if we're a dominant directive person and we overuse dominance, we can tend to be too pushy. We can tend to say it's my way or the highway all the time. And all the time, that's not necessary. What we can do is we can do what we need to do with enough D, but not overuse our dominance. And what ends up happening is because we're so used to using it and because it comes so natural to us, sometimes we think we have to use that all the time. And sometimes it doesn't feel very good. Have you ever seen people that leave people in their wake? Leaders that have overused their dominance and not paid attention to how they're pushing and not letting other people get their word in edgewise. This can be not so helpful to a team. And because all of you are leaders in here and you've all are now critical components of leadership, not only for yourself, but for the entire organizations and projects that you're responsible for, what ends up happening is we need to be aware as much as we can be of the amount of dominance that we're wielding and the amount that we might be overusing it. Likewise, influencers. Influencers are so enthusiastic, so motivating, so inspiring, and so energetic. They can sometimes tend to overuse that influence, that people approach. And other people might say, well, they don't get down to the real meat of the work that has to get done. So they could be overusing their influence. And then at times, we look at our steadiness, the people that are loyal, calm, even keel, get so much done, but they get it done one at a time. Sometimes people feel that they may not move fast enough. Sometimes they don't say no, and they take on more and more assignments without saying no. So putting up boundaries and telling people, no, you're giving me too much is really an important thing for an S, and sometimes they don't do that. And then the C's can sometimes get so much into the detail, the who, what, when, where, why, how many, the analytical, the accuracy, the consistency, that they may overuse that. They may become so critical thinking oriented that the project does not move forward. The issue is these are all good. They're all fine. Sometimes we tend to overuse these and they get in our way. So not saying you're doing it or not doing it. The beautiful thing is to understand when we're doing it and when we're not doing it. So this is what I just went over with you. If you're a dominant, you're a high D, making quick decisions, quick progress, pushing through obstacles. If you're an influencer, you care about building relationships, being part of new things. You love people, places, and things, and you love to really work through people and styles. If you're an S, you love a harmonious environment. You're a phenomenal teammate because you really get a lot of things done and accomplish a lot. And if you're a C, you're very analytical and you're closing all the gaps that exist. We need all of it. We have a lot of it in us. We have all of it in us. The issue is what's our predominant style and predominant type. So I love it when you each person gets a chance to learn about who they are. And I encourage you to do multiples of instruments, 5, 10, as many instruments as you can, and have them all tied together with what are the common themes. I like to look at it in this way. Many of you have heard of Joseph Luft and Harry Ingram, and many of you have not, and it doesn't matter. They are two guys who got together and said, there's information that's known to self and not known to self. And then there's information that's known to others and not known to others. The others is on the left side, the self is up on the top, and the intersections of those areas are what's so crucially important for all of us to be aware of. The information that's known to self and known to others, we call that our open self. And the most powerful leaders in the world are aware of how they come across and how they show up to others. People that understand how to increase the open self become more trusted, more vulnerable, more human. And we heard that in Dawn's speech. How do we become more human? Well, we've got to be more open and more vulnerable. And we have to be able to understand that it's okay to make a mistake. It's okay to experience things. We also have information that's known to self, but not known to others. We call that our hidden self. And it's all based on a level of trust. If I trust you a lot, and some people approach trust all the time, and some people approach trust none of the time. And we're all as different as night and day as we are from each other. We all tend to fall somewhere on the continuum with a group, with a person, with a situation, and what situation we're dealing with. And the best leaders in the world are able to reduce the hidden self and be more open. The most effective teams that are cultivated are able to share, that's not working for me, that is working for me. We need to make this better. We need to get that better. We need to improve how we come across. We need to improve ourselves. And so they're able to share feedback in a healthy, honoring, respectful manner. And that's the key. Is it healthy, honoring, and respectful? I was speaking to a recent person who graduated from one of our programs, because I like to interview people after they go, and the coach helped this person quite a bit. And I said to him, what was your biggest takeaway for you? And he said, what I got is all my life, I've been doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I've been doing that since I'm a child. I'm supposed to do this. I'm supposed to do that. I'm supposed to do this. And finally, I have permission to lead what is my vision, my mission, and my goals, as long as I do it in a healthy, honoring manner, where it's not so much me driven, but it's a combination of me and we. And that's a beautiful learning for a person. We also have the intersection what's not known to self, but known to others. We call that our blind self. And everyone on the planet, and we've been doing this since 1996, has a blind self. The issue is, do we know what it is? Do we know what our blind self is? And the more I live my life, the more blind self parts I'm finding out I have. And the way you become aware of it is through your relationships and through really listening and through really studying. And the tools that I mentioned before, the 1, 2, 5, 10 tools, like the previous one that we talked about, dominance, influence, steadiness, and critical thinking, that's one tool that does share blind information. And it almost punches you in the stomach. It's not known to you, but other people know it. They see it. They see it so clearly. When a dominant is overusing dominance, when a conscientiousness is overusing critical thinking, when an I is overusing their influencing skills. The issue is, do we know it? The best leaders in the world reduce their blind self. So if you take away anything from today and find one thing that you can search for to reduce your blind self, and it'll improve your brand. And as project managers, you're the most critical position in a company, because no revenue comes in, no costs get cut, Nothing happens until the project is on point and completed the way it needs to be completed, so that everyone can accomplish what has to be accomplished when it's supposed to be accomplished. And the project managers lead the company's vision, mission, goals in that way. They make the results or help to make those results come alive. Then we have our unknown self. That's the study of what's not known to others and not known to self. It's the study of our thoughts, our feelings, our innovation. Where do we want to go? Where do others want to go? What do we learn? How do we grow? And how do we transform? And the best leaders that I know spend a ton of time looking at taking risk, putting themselves in uncomfortable positions, and learning, growing, and transforming. I want to talk about this picture. This is a picture of my father, my mom, my nephew, my father's aide, my son, and myself. And this was about a year ago. And my father is 91 now. And when he was 72 years old, about 20 years ago, he got in a terrible car accident and lost an arm and lost a leg and became paralyzed from C3 down. So from his neck down, he can really move. He doesn't have an arm, but he can move very little. He sits in an electronic wheelchair and really has help from his aide doing everything in his life. And I asked him, I said, Dad, how do you keep so positive every day of your life? How do you remain smiling? And I know Dawn brought that up in her speech. How do you stay smiling all the time? And he said, Mike, it's easy. And I said, what do you mean it's easy? He said, I made a decision. I said, what do you mean you made a decision? He said, I made a decision. There is nothing ever that's going to impact how I show up. I want to show up in the best way possible every day, every minute, and I will let nothing bother me and nothing get in my way. And it's just as simple as that. And the reason I wanted to bring it up here is, number one, you all decided to be here, and I thank you so much for that. And number two, you decided that you want to help make your leadership better, and I want to thank you for that. And number three is, I want you to keep in mind that everything you do, how you show up, how you present yourself, everything you do is based on a decision that you make. It's the only thing that can't be taken away from us is how we decide. And so let's remember that. And if it's the only thing you get out of this presentation, I thank you for it, and take it through for the rest of your career and the rest of your project manager life. So all of you have made a decision to look at these 5 P's: planning, process, people, persistence, and profit. These are the 5 P's that successful leaders all over the world are implementing. Obviously, you guys are in the crux of all of it. Okay, particularly projects encompass all of these things. So let's talk about the planning. You must make a decision to do it, or nothing will ever happen. So the time right now is the time to decide. So let's talk about what I mean by planning, because this is your time. This is planning for you. We want to look at a telescope. A telescope, if you've ever looked through one, picks out a point way, way, way up in the sky, and it's way out there. It's beyond anything we can see, we can feel, and it's very, very shaky. And then we pick out that point in the sky, and it's shaky, 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 and we can see it, but it's a speck. That speck, to you as an individual, is your dream or your aspiration. It's almost impossible. It's very personal, and it lives on and on and on. That vision is unbreakable. It's your purpose. It's why you're here. It's the why. So everyone needs to have one. And if you haven't gone through anything to create one, I suggest that you write that down. I need to create my vision. What's my purpose? Because everything at that point needs to link to it. And the way we link it to it is through a strategy. And it's the what we're going to do and how we're going to do it to get there. And that's our binoculars. Why? Because it takes that vision and brings it closer and closer and closer to us. It makes that personal, almost impossible and eternal thing, and it makes it more real to us. And it's what we call our mission. And we like to look at everything even closer, particularly as project managers, we have to. So what are our goals? What are our 3 top goals that we have for ourselves, or our 5? I don't generally like to have more than 5, but what are our 5 top goals that we have on a personal basis that we're going to improve upon, that lead us closer to our dream, our aspiration, which again is very personal, almost impossible, and it's eternal. It lives on forever. And then the last is, the tape measure is, are we going to measure our success? So for too long, for many, 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 many moons, and it's still now, people don't like metrics, particularly on a personal level. We don't like to measure whether we're personally as effective as possible. The greatest project managers in the world are very comfortable with metrics and very comfortable. Is this project moving? If not, why not? Where is the resistance? Now, if you take it on a personal level, what's our resistance? We like to procrastinate. We like to put things off. And I like to look at this like going to a gym. You don't work on your vision, your mission, your goals, and your measure, and you don't measure it just once. We don't go to a gym and just measure once. We're constantly going and improving everything. And then we're measuring along the way. How are we looking? How are we feeling? What's going on for us? Are we eating the right foods? What's going on? So if you look at your leadership and measure your leadership, and are you progressing? Are you using any kind of way of measuring, just like you would for a project, doing it for yourself? Then you're going to start to implement behaviors. The behaviors come easy because you're going to get disciplined so that you can build habits. And this morning, Andrew mentioned Charles Duhigg. He wrote another book called The Power of Habit. And it's a very, very powerful book on how we get habits to take root. Again, if you take just that away and implement it, I would be ecstatic. And implement some of the ways to have habits take root. But here's where planning gets started with our vision, our mission, our goals, and our measures, and everything connects to these. We need them on a personal basis. You can't just have them in your head. It must be written down. You must write these so that they become real for you. So if you do not have that, that's another thing I would highly recommend, that you take a journal or a diary and you begin to say, what is it that I want? How is it that I'm going to go about it? What are my 3 top goals? How am I measuring my success? And what behavior am I using to get there? Again, it's a process. It's not an event. So often I get called and say, Mike, can you guys come in and do your leadership program? Can you run the journey, and can you do it in a day? Or can you do it in an hour? Okay. And our coaches that have been doing this get that request all the time. The issue is yeah, you're going to get something in an hour, in a day, but that's not how things take root. It's a process that's adaptive, that's enabling. They know where they are and they know where they need to be. And so the effective leaders, as project managers, you have a blueprint that you're not going to just do it haphazardly. You're going to do it in an ongoing fashion, which again ties to the behaviors and the habits. And again, what is your attitude towards those behaviors? How do you feel about them? I don't love going to swing a kettlebell. No one does. But unless I know I go multiple times in a week, the work that I've done is going to dissipate. So I need everyone to kind of internalize that this is lifelong learning, this process. And so knowing where you are and knowing where you want to be is lifelong. You are the engine that drives everything. And as the engine, I don't know that we all realize ourselves how much power we have as project managers and the value that we bring. Again, that was one of the 10 that Don shared. How do we increase the value? Well, learn what is the best way to build a team. And the best way to do it is to start with trust. How do I get people to trust each other? That in and of itself is a process. It starts with people getting to know each other. It starts with being vulnerable with each other. It starts with getting people to talk about what they're experiencing, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Then it moves to conflict. Are we having conflict in a healthy, honoring, respectful manner with each other? Again, we can have all kinds of conflict. And I have this statement, without conflict, there is no leadership. And you can quote that. But this is healthy, honoring, and respectful conflict. Do we commit to each other in a healthy, honoring, respectful way? Do we hold each other accountable in a healthy, honoring, respectful way? And are we successfully achieving the results that we need? Because we're all there for results. This is built on Patrick Lencioni's book, The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, but I'd like to flip it around because it's the 5 behaviors of a cohesive team. How cohesive of a team are you building? Do you have a process to build the team? Everyone is looking toward the project manager to build the team, but first we got to work on ourselves. Then we got to work with everyone else. So we must be that leadership engine that drives the project and understands these 5 components and how to build cohesion. Again, we already said this, your leadership is the engine. Everyone has strengths. Everyone has an Achilles heel. The issue is, can we talk about it in a healthy, honoring, respectful way? There is a lot of great books that can help us with those things. I do highly recommend reading The 5 Behaviors of a Dysfunctional Team. And if you want to know the process for it, it's overcoming the 5 behaviors of a dysfunctional team to make it cohesive. And it's by Patrick Lencioni, Lencioni. Persistence. Again, nothing is going to come easy. Well, I will say everything will come easy once you realize that you have to persist. Once you realize that and you made a decision that you're going to overcome any obstacles, then things are going to move as they move. There's going to be mountains to climb, like this guy is showing here. You're going to have barriers. But the issue is, if you've made that decision, like my dad made that decision, how is he going to show up? You will overcome these obstacles. You'll go right through them. Why? Because you're building the muscles of being persistent. Remember, I mentioned without conflict, there is no leadership. This is one of the biggest things that you're going to have to overcome. This particular diagram shows we need to use assertive behavior and we need to use cooperative behavior. Sometimes based on our DISC profile, we're always assertive. Sometimes we're unassertive. Sometimes we avoid, and sometimes we cooperate. And here's the deal. We need to use all of them, and we need to use them when the time is appropriate. We need to be competitors, which is a high level of assertiveness, low level of cooperativeness. We need to use collaborating, which is high level of assertiveness, high level of cooperativeness. We need to use compromising, which is a medium level of assertiveness and a medium level of cooperativeness. We need to be good avoiders because we don't need to be involved in everything. So that's low level of assertiveness, low level of cooperativeness. And we also need to be accommodating, where we give for the goodwill. So that's a high level of cooperativeness, low level of assertiveness. If you don't know how you're coming across, you need to go out and talk to people. Are you using any one of these more than others. There are assessments also that measure that. Learn from the misses. We already talked about that. And I have this slogan, stop worldwide finger pointing. It's really personal accountability. And there's a great book on personal accountability by John Miller called the QBQ. I highly, highly recommend it and that everybody read it. And then listen, what are you hearing? What are you feeling? And how do you become open and receptive, but dealing in a healthy, honoring, respectful manner? We're all entitled to the 5th P, which is profit and results. There's emotional profit and gains. And then there's financial gains. And as project managers, project leaders, project owners, we're all entitled to both. Sometimes we forget that and we tend to minimize the amount of effort, energy, and emotion and how much value we bring. And I know it's a ton. So understanding that value is so critical, as Dawn mentioned. There's 1% that do some really powerful things that drive success. First, they lead themselves, then they lead others. Everything starts with you. Now you can do both at the same time because you're learning from them, but you really need to work on things first. You can't tell them, oh, you got to do this, you got to do that, and you not model it. You have to have a clear direction on where you're going and why you're going. And that's your vision, your mission, your goals, and your measures. And if you do not have those written down, please have them written down. We were doing a vision, mission, goals session in one of the programs, one of the journeys, and everybody has to create something in that program. And one of the people was, I interviewed a few years after, and I said, how did you do the first time you did your vision, mission, goals, and are you doing them now? And she said, Mike, I am so interested that you asked me this, because when I think back at how I was doing it the first time, I felt very, very intimidated. There was a guy there that was saving $20 million, and he was doing all kinds of special things. And my vision, mission, goals at that time was to lead my husband's small business. And I felt intimidated. I felt that I couldn't bring it up. I felt I couldn't talk about it. And I really needed to. I really needed to be able to talk about it. And I needed to know what I'm doing and why I'm going there and why. And I needed other people to hear about it. But I'm so glad that she told me that, because there are people out there now that still feel very, very intimidated, and that's okay. Intimidation is a good feeling. The issue is what do you do with it? It's just a feeling. There's no good, no bad, no right, no wrong, no should of it. It's just a feeling, and how do you observe it and then take a different direction for yourself? And then we have to hold ourselves and others accountable, including building our soft skills. We spend a ton of time building technical skills, and then how often do we go to the gym to build these soft skills and, as Dawn mentioned, create a phenomenal culture? We want to prevent the clogging. There's signs that things could be messed up. So you have to address issues head on. You have to use the approach without conflict. There is no leadership. If you're always avoiding conflict or letting someone else handle it, you need to say, how do I handle this in a healthy, honoring, respectful way? And how do I build my skills to learn how to be where my communication comes across the best way possible? We want to commit to being continual learners, that it's never going to stop. I'm trying to learn Spanish for myself right now, in addition to my soft skills, still make them better and better. And my Spanish I've been doing now for about 5 years or 4 years, as long as Duolingo's been out. And I know it's going to be a lifelong thing, because I want to be able to conduct a session in Spanish, and I know I'm nowhere near that at this point. And we want to build a stronger work engine and more engaged work culture. You heard a lot of techniques from Dawn, but the way you do it to start with is to work on you. And then that will start, other people will start to see change, and they'll say, what are you doing to make yourself the best of the best? I see change in you. So I must change to become an effective and stronger leadership person. What is one thing I can change starting today, or I will start doing today, And what's one thing I could stop doing today that helps me be the best leadership engine that I can be? I'd like you to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. There's a lot of free videos. There's a free leadership compass that has a lot of these things outlined in the compass. Please go to the website, peopletechcoaching.com, print it off. There's YouTube videos on our YouTube channel. If you follow us, they're complimentary. Would love to hear from you, love to talk to you, and can't thank you enough. These are some of the references, or the 5 dysfunctions of a team that I mentioned, and 12 steps for courageous leadership. Okay.
Hi, Michael. Awesome. That was awesome. And I got a lot of good tips from that. Thank you so much. There was.
I hope so, Connie. I hope you got some good tips, and I hope everybody did.
Yeah. So we do have a couple of questions. Yeah. One
okay,
was, what was the name of the most recent book that you recommended?
The most recent book that I recommended, well, the one that I wrote down there was Patrick Lencioni's 5 Behaviors of a Dysfunctional Team. That's been around for a long, long time. There is a book called Overcoming the 5 Behaviors of a Dysfunctional Team by Patrick Lencioni. And there's a process that explains the process that you go through. And if you have any questions, you can feel free to reach out to me. There is also a book that I mentioned called The QBQ, The Question Behind the Question. It's by John Miller, and it's on the topic of accountability and ownership. And the book that I'm reading right now, and I unfortunately don't have the guy's name, but I find it to be very powerful. It was a book written in the 80s. It's called Nonviolent Communication. Nonviolent Communication. I think it's Rosenberg is the author, but I'm not positive. But if anybody needs, they can reach out to me and I'll get them the author. But that book gives a process on how to have healthy, honoring, and respectful communication. Obviously, there's many, many books on that, but I highly recommend Nonviolent Communication. Marshall Rosenberg, there it is. Thank you, somebody, Kim, who put that in the chat.
Yeah, the question behind the question was another one. Okay, so there they are. And then I think one question. So in reducing your blind self, what are some tools you can use?
Several tools that I highly recommend. Obviously, in our leadership journey, we do 5 tools, but Myers-Briggs has been around for a long time. I do think it's very important that everyone knows their Myers-Briggs type. Why? Because we could tend to over or underuse each one of those parameters. If we're an INFP, somebody I think in the chat this morning put I'm an INFJ. Well, if they overuse introversion, they may end up becoming too silent. They may not speak up enough. If they overuse intuition, they may be too high, big in the clouds and not grounded enough. If they overuse their feeling, they may be too much into people. And the combination of INFJ, which is a phenomenal type, sometimes gets so metric oriented around people that it gets very complicated. So it's good to know your strength, but it's also good to know your Achilles heel. Another tool is obviously the DISC, which we did a quick overview with a mini DISC. Another one is TKI. I did talk about it in this session, the Thomas Kilmann profile. Very, very powerful. It measures whether or not you're doing conflict or if you're overusing or underusing any of those 5 modes. And what it helps you with are what are the skills for each one of those modes, and how do you know when to use the mode at the right time. Another one is DISC work of leaders. The DISC work of leaders measures vision, alignment, and execution. And the beautiful thing about that tool is it gives you your DISC results, but it also gives you, am I clear in terms of how I deal with vision? Am I good at how I carry out execution? And am I good at all the components of alignment? And it measures you without doing a 360. You actually get 360 results very close to what 360s come out without doing it. There are also team tools. There's a tool called the Team Dimension tool. Are you an advancer, a facilitator, an executor? Which one of 5 different areas do you fall into in your role as a team? A creator, advancer, refiner, executor, facilitator? And do you tend to overuse any one of those things? Does the team overuse it? The beautiful thing about doing the tools is you can do a team profile, and then the whole team can discuss, are we as a team overusing this? I'll give you an example. My team, when there's another tool, 5 Behaviors of a Cohesive Team came out, which is based on the book 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. Many of you know Marilyn Brown. She brought it to our team because she became, we had her get certified. And Marilyn said, let me run it on the People Tech team. And everybody's saying, no, we don't need that. We're all coaches. Why would we need that? And it's so powerful because we needed it as much or more than anyone. And it exposed where we didn't trust each other, where we were talking behind each other's back. It brought all of these good things out in the open and healthy discussion, and the team went way up because of running that tool.
Yeah, it's a very constructive feedback. I know I did Myers-Briggs years ago. I've done DISC. And then we did one at one of the PMI leadership meetings the board did as a group. And we did kind of a team thing, and it was really good because it's a constructive environment. It's a very, it's a good environment to talk about different things, but it's very eye-opening too. When I did my own personal one, I mean, how others perceive you is something that you don't always know. And so, others perceive me as this or that. So it's really a good thing for self-awareness. And so that's good. I recommend that anyway. And those are some good books you mentioned, Michael.
Thank you. Thank you. And somebody's asking what the team tool is. I think I'm seeing there. It's called Team Dimensions.
Oh.
Team Dimensions.
Sorry, missed that one.
It's all right. Thanks, Connie.
Yeah. Yeah. So awesome, Michael. And so we ended on time. And the next thing that we're going to do, I'm going to turn the stage off, and you'll go back to the main room where you can chat with people. So it's good. You can get some networking in. We then have lunch from 12. Let me look at my little agenda here. So lunch is from 11:50 to 12:50. I'm sure Ed will be making an announcement in the general room, but you have some time to network. So from 12:50 or 11:50 rather, what did I say? 11:50 to 12:50 is lunch. That's next on the agenda. And then at 1 o'clock the panel starts. So again, I'm sure Ed will be making an announcement, but that's pretty much the event.
Sounds awesome. I want to thank everybody for attending.
And it's been great. Thank you so much,
and
Michael.
Thank everyone for attending. And I'm sorry about the rocky start, but sorry about
no,
too. But thank you everybody for attending. Really enjoyed it. And
thank you. All right, we're going back to the floor now.
Back.